Play the game for more than you can afford to lose. Only then will you learn the game. Winston Churchill. In the day and age where more and more people are into video games than ever before, those same people are finding communities that they enjoy being around and sharing moments of those games with one another. Whether that's Discord communities, Steam communities, or any place in between, one thing has become more common for pretty much anyone who plays video games. They want to show people what they're doing in the games they play. Doesn't matter what kind of game it is, doesn't matter what their reason is for wanting to share. People like sharing things to others, myself included. And now we live in a time and place where it's never been easier to get a clip of a cool or clutch moment from a game and share that with potentially thousands of people across the internet. The demand for better and better material has gone up as well. People are more inclined to only show the good instead of the bad, which has made people seek out what's best in a particular game, especially if that game is competitive in any sort of way. So then, the question of whether or not games in 2022 have become too competitive is seriously worth asking. Everyone certainly has an opinion on games, and whether or not being competitive is a good thing. It's a delicate and meticulous conversation with some layers to it. So, I'm gonna do my best to break it down from personal experience and see if games really are being taken too seriously these days, or if there's still plenty of room for fun and just overall positive interactions in video games. Any real semblance of competitive games for myself didn't really start until the Xbox 360 era. Sure, I can go back and say couch co-op with the original Xbox, PlayStation 2, or even the N64 could be considered competitive. Late nights with GoldenEye, Mario Party, Halo always had us at each other's throats, but within the context of it's just friends bantering with one another, not exactly what I would call competitive. Everyone wanted to win, yeah, but we weren't doing everything in our power to optimize a strategy to its absolute best. We just didn't want to lose and get dunked on by our friends, understandably so. However, with the rise of playing games online with people you've never met before, those moments of playing for the actual fun and joy of the video game are still there, but slowly, over time, the idea began to take a backseat for some people, and an emphasis of playing to solely be better than your opponents began to creep up more and more in modern games. Again, this is strictly speaking about online games. Halo, COD, League. These games that started out relatively lighthearted and carefree turned somewhat of a different leaf, with more and more emphasis being placed on using guns, perks, gear, runes, etc. that were best in slot. This is a phrase I think most people are familiar with, but just in case, best in slot basically means the most useful whatever piece of gear or equipment that is the most optimal and advantageous for you to use and equip. This might be a perk or a weapon attachment in Call of Duty, certain runes and masters from League, or even something like getting timers down and standing by for power weapons in Halo. Now, using these innately doesn't mean you're being overly competitive when playing online. Hell, you just might use them because you like them, and then someone happens to mention that they're the most powerful, and it certainly does happen that way. But when it treads into being overly competitive, and this leads into the next part of this conversation, is when your mindset changes around only using the best because it's the best. There is certainly a time and a place to not pull your punches and do everything in your power to win. The best example of this would be any kind of tournament setting. If there's a prize on the line, whether it's an item or money, then there's no reason not to try your absolute best to win. Some people will still use things they just enjoy or love, even if it's not necessarily the best. And to be honest, a crowd always loves an underdog story. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing someone who is using something underpowered decimate a bracket of people fighting tooth and nail using the strongest things in the game. It's kind of cathartic, really. But not everyone will play by those rules. Again, understandably so. However, if you aren't in a high-stakes situation, if there isn't anything on the line, then why? Why use the best stuff in a game? Does that person just want to win as much as possible? Do they want to improve at the game and feel as though if they aren't using the best, they're falling behind? The answer to this question is going to vary across everyone you ask. For myself, I kinda lost my hyper-competitive edge back in the 360 days of gaming, playing Call of Duty and Halo, and always trying really friggin' hard. Buying extra peripherals to try and squeeze out an edge, even if it's a tiny fraction of one. Nowadays though, I'm much more reserved. I always try to do my best, but that isn't the same as sweating every single day, trying to get my KDA .01 higher or anything. No, I just play. That's really all there is to it. If I was put into a competitive situation like a tournament, then I would definitely put on my tryhard pants once more. I'd still most likely lose, but that's okay. As long as I put on a good show and performance, I'd be happy with that. Doesn't help that most games these days feel unfinished, buggy, broken, which just leads to disappointment and frustration, but that's a whole other conversation for future times. Another reason for competition, even just in a casual setting, is monetization, but not strictly in a tournament setting. The gaming market has become a beacon for people to be creative and share their gaming stories with each other, and those stories come in all games and ideas. Whether it's a story woven with some form of narrative plot that speaks more like a movie than an actual video game, or just someone showing a really good game of domination where they talk about the game itself or life or whatever's going on. Every piece of content produced for a game is someone wanting to share something with others. This video, a great example. Just a conversation about gaming in 2022 and what it has kind of turned into from the past years. This industry is meteoric in terms of size, and everyone wants to be a part of it somehow. And over time, developers and publishers have seen the benefits of allowing people to share their games and stories that they create within those games. So, people want to show the best parts of both the game itself, but also their skills within the game. The demand for excellence in gaming has gone up dramatically over the years. Now, of course, not everyone and everything needs to be the best, but it's hard to deny that there isn't a market for content that's sole purpose is to explain and illustrate what the best things are in online games. People eat that content up. It's a fast and simple way to get the necessary information to be as lethal as possible in online games. Especially if a game has been out for some time and a new update has you enticed by what you see, so you look up online the fastest way to get competitively back into the game, so you're on as even of a playing field as everyone else who hasn't put the game down since launch. It happens all the time. COD, Destiny, League, these games thrive on metas. Characters, weapons, or items that are the most consistent and strong currently in the game and most likely to net you a win. As developers update games and buff and nerf things, the meta shifts to whatever the newest and greatest thing is that someone's figured out. It's a flowing river, and when someone puts a rock into the river to try to stop it, the river just moves around the rock and keeps going. Sadly, metas will always be a thing, despite how player mentality can be marred by the mere existence of one, putting too much of a focus into it instead of just finding something that they are comfortable with and enjoying that, regardless if it gets them a win or not. Player mentality is another core factor with competition in gaming. If the expectation is that you are to enjoy yourself, don't take things too seriously, and have fun, then that's what most players will do. A game like Rocket League is a wonderful example. People play the heck out of that game because it's soccer with cars. Just the idea alone is exciting. And as someone who played it briefly a long time ago before it got really popular, I remember the first time I scored a goal, it was like the hypest thing I've ever done. That game is adrenaline and dopamine, the video game. Lots of people casually enjoy it, and then there are others who take it seriously while playing online with randoms. The competitive people could argue that those who don't care about winning are ruining the game for themselves, and the opposite argument could be made as well. This conversation can get messy depending on how far the rabbit hole goes. But there aren't a ton of games making that a core pillar and explicitly explaining that's their intention with the game. Look, everyone enjoys games differently. I get that. If someone wants to min-max every experience possible so they have the highest chance of winning and being victorious, then that's fine. Who am I to take a jab at them for playing the game they want to play? But I have a question. When does it end? If you're the best at a game, can you still enjoy it even though you might just roll over most people you come across? Does the fun ever fade away? Can you only enjoy the game in some kind of competitive environment? Or is there still some visceral level of enjoyment and satisfaction because you are that good at it? I'd love to hear people's takes on this idea. Gaming has never been bigger in the modern world, and every year it continues to get bigger. Mainstream AAA games, indie games, mobile games, whatever you fancy, this medium has created some of the greatest opportunities to escape our reality and be transported to pretty much whatever you can think of. Some people do it for the slow, casual enjoyment of taking everything a game has to offer, while others want a fast-paced, high-stakes situation where everything rides on making the right decisions, hitting your shots, making the right calls. We're all different with complex ideas, how and why we choose to play our video games. So are games becoming too competitive? I don't know. In the right setting, with the right circumstances, gaming being taken seriously is extremely exciting and the true essence of competition. On the other hand, casual gaming can be the most invigorating and rewarding experience anyone can have digitally. So I guess I'll pass the question off to you, the viewer. Do you think gaming has become too sweaty or overly competitive? Or do you think this is just the natural evolution of how people experience games online? Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more videos about topics and ideas revolving around video games. I hope to see you in future ones.